The user interface sometimes gets in the way in the Unity scene. In this lecture, we'll explore techniques to deal with this issue. Our objectives will be to explore techniques including disabling the UI game object, hiding the UI layer, and locking the UI layer. So up in the scene view, you can see my UI. If I go ahead and select Sparty, for example, tap F to zoom to him, notice that both the UI and my game elements all share the same space. And you can see that they're sort of overlapping here, which sometimes is confusing, especially in the case where we see the extra life indicator here. It might be confusing as we're editing to, see part of Sparty there. And also sometimes it might be hard to select things. So I might be trying to select this cloud and I accidentally end up selecting the game canvas, the game UI canvas. So there's a couple ways to resolve this. So if I'm doing level design and I want to basically get the UI out of the way, one thing I could do is just, of course, select the canvas itself and then just disable that game object. And that will make all the UI disappear from both the scene view and from the game view. So it just doesn't exist. It's basically disabled in the project. You can see it's grayed out here. The advantage of this, of course, is it's out of the way. The big disadvantage is we don't see it in the game view, so we can't see the UI relative to the things we're doing in level design. And if we forget to turn it back on and play the game, the UI doesn't exist. And maybe some of our code refers to the UI, and it might cause null references and cause our game to break. So turning off the UI is probably not the best technique unless it's just a very quick fix to do something very quickly, and then you turn it right back on, which I'll do so now. Now, another way to resolve this issue of the UI being on in the same scene is to actually hide the UI. So one thing to note is all of your UI are actually automatically placed on the UI layer. So as I go through all of these elements, you can see they're all on that UI layer. So being that they're all on the UI layer, there's actually an option right above the inspector called Layers, drop-down menu, which I can select. And notice it allows me to set the visibility of any of the layers, not just the UI layer. But in this case, I can turn off the visibility of the UI layer, which you can see that it's no longer in the scene view, but it is in the game view, it is in the hierarchy, so I can continue to edit it in the hierarchy, I can continue to see it in the game, and of course if I play, it's going to exist and continue to work as we would like in the game. So this is a much better technique than just disabling the game object. Really the only disadvantage of this approach is that if you don't realize it's hidden, you might be confused if you are trying to do visual editing. So if I select something like the extra life icon and tap F, it basically looks invisible. I can't see it. So that's maybe confusing. So you just have to realize that it is made invisible. So you can, of course, tap Layers and make it visible again so you can see that. One other option here in Layers is the ability to lock things. So if you lock it, you can't actually select it in the scene view. So once again, if I click on a cloud, let me zoom in here a little bit. If I click on a cloud, I am selecting that cloud. I don't accidentally select the canvas. So locking is another option. Of course, you can lock and make things invisible. Personally, I like to leave it unlocked because I find locking more confusing when I'm clicking and I see it and it's not being selected. I think it's a bug when in fact it's just locked. So I do like to, if I do want to hide it, I'll set the visibility or the show hide layer to invisible. So I'll go ahead and do that at this point. Just remember that. So if you do need to go back and visually edit the UI in the scene view, it is hidden, so you'd have to unhide that. And I'll go ahead and select Sparty and tap F to recenter my display, and then I'll zoom out a little bit so I can see most of my level. And I'll go ahead and save the scene.